to the Olsem Wanem program. Tonight we bring to you a special highlights of the National House Cry. We will also speak to the organizers, Women Arise, and of course church representatives. We will also talk to all the citizens here, or those that we can find around here, to have their views of the event. But first, let's take a quick look at what brought on the National House Cry. Here is just a reminder.
Violence against women is a global issue. Throughout the world, women are being subjected to all forms of violence every day. WHO multi-country study on women's health and domestic violence in mainly 10 developing countries found that women in the age range of 15 to 49 years old experienced regular violence from an intimate partner or guardian.
But today, students, activists and the general public have taken to the streets to protest a crime they say has sadly become commonplace.
We are not protesting here because the girl was raped yesterday, but we are protesting here because this is an everyday issue.
Police say a 23-year-old medical student was raped by several men in a moving bus. Delhi has always been notorious for its high rate of crime against women. Government figures show the capital accounted for 23% of rape cases amongst all Indian cities in 2011. But the gruesome nature of this attack has caused outrage.
Papua New Guinea is no different, and for far too long the issue of violence has been swept under the carpet because of the "emi no problem belong me" mentality we have chosen to witness in silence.
You're with Olsem Wanem. We'll be back right after the break. Welcome back to the studio. The events of recent weeks made an impact on women all over Papua New Guinea, in particular a group of women called Women Arise PNG. 3 months on, and on the 14th and 15th of May, a house cry movement was staged to commemorate those women and men who lost their lives to senseless violence.
Down because God's army is taking over, because there's power in unity. Somebody say amen. All right, come on, join your hands right out there. That's it. We're going to come in His presence and we're going to celebrate. I want all 16 now. Come on, let me hear you say, we like a love, we like a love, we like a love. It's our Jesus, we like a love. It's our Jesus. Why we're here is because we understand that we are people who want to see justice.
This group of women have been driven basically because of the plight of women in Papua New Guinea. They feel the pain from the heart, and that's the reason why they have put in the hours. It's amazing because they are all professional women in their own rights, and God has really put this team together. It was an initiative of Sarah Howder in Ley, and it came after the burning of our sister Kipari Leniata and the gang rape of the sister in Engau Hospital. And being who I am, knowing that I don't like short-term demonstrations, which is an emotional, you go to an emotional hype, and what happens after that? So I told her we needed a strategic approach to this. We needed to really engage with the different stakeholders, to look at really coming up with something that we must engage the government, on an ongoing basis to get solutions. We started on the 26th of February, which is roughly about 9 weeks ago. In the process of us sitting down together and doing a review of, of the issues of women in Papua New Guinea, the deaths, kept happening. The rape kept happening. It came to a stage where we called a forum.
But if there's one thing we're very good at, it is expressing our emotion in a time of sorrow and in a time of grief. Le place blumi, culture blumi. It's not like this, huh? Like you have a service and a wake and a funeral, but it tends to be very subdued and quiet. And then when it's over and everyone has gone home, then you express your emotion. But in Papua New Guinea culture, we express our emotion deeply. I mean, you can hear someone coming from 2 blocks away. And we in the course of that house cry, we release so much emotion, and that's something that we feel that collectively there's a heart cry within this nation. There's a lot of wounded people walking around this nation. There's a lot of hurt and despair and sadness, and this is an avenue through which we can articulate ourselves and call the nation collectively to come back into realignment with basic human rights and principles of justice and equality, and to realign ourselves with the Word of God. This is a pivotal and historic moment in the history of this nation. And it's not a protest against the current government, because many of us feel that there have been failure across the board throughout successive governments since independence that have failed the women of this country. And there's so many laws on the books that protect women, but they're not implemented. And we don't necessarily desire or need more legislation or more laws. What we need is a justice system that will enforce the laws that are currently on the books. And it's been remarkable how so many different groups and individuals and organizations have come together. And this is not something that we're just staging here in Port Moresby. It's being staged in 19 different provinces across this country. They will hold simultaneous house cries tomorrow to coincide and stand in solidarity with us. There are Wantalks spread out across the globe in over a dozen countries that tomorrow, I know Wantalks from many different countries, different states in America, from about 22 different states. They are driving to Washington, D.C. to have a memorial service and a house cry in the nation's capital, and then march to the Papua New Guinea Embassy and present their call to action.
Not just legislation, because we've got legislation after legislation after legislation, and yet where the rubber hits the road and when the citizen is violated or abused or killed, the perpetrators are still walking free out there. So that would be the crux of what the petition is going to hold, because we cannot stand by and not do anything anymore. We all have got to say enough is enough and stand up and do something. We cannot turn a blind eye to a violence that is happening next door or on the street, or walk past a woman that is raped. We must do something. Or as a mother or as a relative harbor a criminal, harbor a perpetrator, we must say no to violence, and we must bring these people to justice.
It goes back to culture. The biggest problem that Papua New Guinea is having is that we are a blessed nation, and ever since the time that we got independence, because of the way that we got independence, it's both a curse and a blessing, because it created this culture of complacency. And because of the complacency that we have, many people started taking for granted a lot of the things that are happening, and the battle that we have is against perception. And this perception has been built up by the cultural norms, the cultural beliefs that we have that stem from the kind of principles and values, and through that it became our action. And because it's become such a norm, they've numbed their conscience as on violence against women. It's not a good thing.
So do you think we should do away with some of those practices?
Yeah, definitely we should, because what it's doing is it's creating a bad image for our country.
Mostly with our culture, it's male dominated, and so what I think, the government and mostly people that are aware of the situation, they should, educate women that are suppressed and they're not exposed to the information that they are needed, and especially to do with their rights and responsibilities as women.
This is not a new thing. Our women and children have suffered continuously. Women are equal partners in the development of our country. They should not be treated as inferior beings in our country. They should be treated equal to men. It is about time government and opposition must stand united to protect and to safeguard our women and children of our country. I want to assure you tonight, if there are any laws that the government proposes to legislate to bring maximum penalty to the perpetrators, I stand united to support the bill.
You're watching Olsem Wanem. When we come back, day 2 of the National House Cry. This is Olsem Wanem, and if you've just joined us, we're featuring the National House Cry, which was staged in Port Moresby earlier this week.
Day 2 of the National House Cry saw most of the working women, schools and the diplomats converged at the Sir John Guy's Stadium to show their support for the event. Even the business houses made their presence known.
And we will be following that up through a new initiative with Women in Business Initiative. I think that's one of the things I'm going to ask them to look at, where our employers help staff. I mean, a lot of their employees are getting beaten, they're in abusive relationships, but they're trapped. And if you've got an employee who's trapped in a useless personal relationship, you're not going to get a good result from them. So we're going to appeal to our businesses to assist them when an employee wants to lay a complaint, to take an apprehended violence order, to go through some of the pain with their employees. This violence in the workplace is, it's domestic violence, but it shows up in the workplace, and it's so damaging to families. Quite often the woman is the only income earner, yet her husband is beating her up and putting her off work.
Soon after the arrival of the Prime Minister, the speeches began.
I've had the good fortune to travel all over this country in the short time that I've been here. And everywhere I go, I meet women with her character, her commitment, her passion, who walk the talk of freedom. And I want to assure you and people of this country that while I would never come here to give you advice or to tell you what to do, I do want you to know that the people of my country stand with you in solidarity to do everything that we can to stop violence against women. We must respect life. President Obama said, gender equality still remains one of the greatest unmet challenges of our times. We need to empower girls to speak up for themselves, educate boys to speak up for their sisters. We must support the inclusion of men, boys, and other critical community stakeholders, such as religious leaders, in addressing and preventing violence and changing gender attitudes. I encourage all of us to reach out to the men who are not here today and enlist them as allies in this struggle. We welcome the participation of more men as advocates in their communities. The United States stands ready to complement your efforts, and violence against women, we believe, is preventable. But Honorable Prime Minister, as President Obama well knows, it requires the political will of leaders like yourself. It has been a long, long battle. But I come from a country which at the time of our independence did not believe black people should be allowed to vote, much less be free. People said that's the way it it's always been. I come from a country that at the beginning of the last century did not even allow women to vote. People said, that's the way it's always been. And I come from a country which did not allow black citizens to vote freely until 30 years ago. People said, that's the way it's always been. And when I grew up, there was violence against women in my community. And people said, that's not our business. That's the way it's always been. We're fighting to change that. We have made great progress, and I know you can too.
Violence against women is not just a women's issue. It is a responsibility for all of us. It is a threat to democracy. It is an obstacle for building a nation and a harmonious society. It is a barrier to lasting peace, a burden on the national economy. It is an outrage, and it must be stopped.
I am here to convey to you the solidarity of the Australian people for your cause, a very, very important cause. Australia welcomes the Papua New Guinea government's commitment to ending violence against women, including through the Family Protection Bill.
This is Olsem Wanem. When we come back, the petition presentation and the Prime Minister's response. This is Olsem Wanem. In this last segment this evening, the President of Women Arise Papua New Guinea presents a document petition to the Prime Minister highlighting the need for change in addressing gender-based violence in the country.
Honorable Prime Minister, it is with great emotion in my heart that we would like to honor you by honoring the womb that gave you life, the breast that suckled, you and made you a man. We would like to honor the womb that has borne your children and those that will bear your descendants. For these children will one day call you a great man. It is because of these women that we ask you to arise and to do more than what is currently being done today. We the people look to the government for protection and justice in accordance with the rule of law.
On behalf of the government of Papua New Guinea, I want to express our sympathy to all the victims of this despicable violence that continues to be around our communities throughout our country. I know that this is a very difficult moment, but I want to assure you that your government, that our government stands together with you so that we can together address this problem in our country. And I want to assure the Women Arise and this outcry that we are in today, that you can be assured of our support. Don't let us go to sleep on this issue. Keep us on our toes.
This has been Olsem Wanem. We've come to the end of the show, but before we do, here is a reminder from a sister, daughter, and niece sharing her thoughts. Good night.
I've had 2 broken relationships due to abuse. My first being the worst, mentally, physically, and people wouldn't understand. You can cover it up, which I took the time out to buy a lot of makeup. And I took a long time to heal. I'm still healing slowly. So you go on a rebound and you get yourself to attach to the next person who loves you and treats you a bit better. But then that fails. So where do you turn to? Your belief, your God? Yes, God is always there, and that's the truth. Maybe we have to go find that, but a lot of people don't understand the mental damage it can do to you. You start dressing down from how you should be, you start gaining weight, you don't mix or associate, and you start blaming yourself. A lot of the physical abuse I endured, and verbal and mental abuse, I thought it was my fault, and I actually believed that I deserved it. You wouldn't really go to family, even though they're close and you can talk to them. But with people not intervening, like even to your partner's family, you know, will they intervene? From experience, I'll say there was a point in time where I tried to take my own life, thinking that no one was there for me. I quickly came out of that, thinking that was selfish, not only to my family, who did nothing wrong to me. It was my choice, and that's what you forget when you're in love, so we believe it is, and because they're more obsessive over you and they possess you and they tell you to do things, you believe that is love when it's not, and it's nothing to do with love. But I came out of that and I made a stand, and I actually, it tore me up so bad that I attacked physically back, because it builds a beast or a volcano waiting to erupt. It's like a dormant volcano, and you keep it and you keep it, but you can only keep it for so long. We have Lifeline. There's not much market on that. With hospitals, our clinics, thank you very much, but it's an open door thing, so a lot of people are not going to go and say, I was raped, I need treatment, can you check me, or sorry, this black eye or this broken shoulder or dislocated arm is from a belting, where probably they'll feel more comfortable in a room. But then also our nurses and what are not, our doctors and in the healthcare are not trained to talk you through coming out and direct you in the right direction. Maybe the government should come down, find an NGO or something to go in.